So RPGs, there's nothing like sitting down with a nice cool drink or a hot cup of coffee getting completely invested into a story-driven grand adventure. My first experience with the RPG genre was the Pokemon series, and I'm sure many gamers my age would agree. Not only did Pokemon teach you the fundamentals of how a turn-based system would work, but it also taught you about item management, leveling, and how to counter each elemental with another. All great stuff. It wasn't until the PS2 era where I really got into the genre with games like Final Fantasy X and Kingdom Hearts, but for many people, it was the Super Nintendo that introduced them to the RPG genre. Now, when I think of the Super Nintendo, RPGs are some of the first games that come to mind. Games like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Earthbound, and of course Super Mario RPG, which is the game we're going to be looking at today. As you know, Mario has been in almost every genre out there, from sports, racing, and even real-time strategy with Mario plus Rabbids. But the RPG games, in my opinion, has some of Mario's best and most memorable adventures. The first Mario RPG I played was Superstar Saga on the Game Boy Advance, and that game is still considered one of my favorite RPGs ever. So what about Super Mario RPG, the one that kind of started it all for Mario? Does this game still hold up today, and can I recommend it? Well, let's take a look. Super Mario RPG was developed by Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, but at this time, Square was on fire with the RPGs for the Super Nintendo. Not only did you have the Final Fantasy series, but you also had Chrono Trigger, which I consider one of the best games of all time, and Secret of Mana, so it only made sense that Nintendo reached out to Square to help develop an RPG centered around Mario. Mario was on top of the world as well, with games like Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and Mario Kart, so why not make an RPG? So in terms of the story for this game, it starts off as a typical Bowser kidnapping Peach scenario. You go to the castle and fight Bowser in an opening sequence that I thought was pretty cool, fighting on top of a huge chandelier. Once you defeat Bowser, the story takes a huge turn. Now we're greeted by this giant sword named Smithy, who pretty much hijacks the castle and tell Mario that the world is now his. So we spend the majority of the time collecting star pieces to defeat Smithy and his gang and return the Mushroom Kingdom back to normal. The story is still pretty simple, but I will say, being this is the first game that really changed the narrative from rescuing Peach to this, it was clear that Nintendo was willing to take a few risks with the storyline and characters, which is one thing that sets the Mario RPGs apart from the mainline games. This game gives the characters actual personality, and I love that. Mario is still pretty mute, but here he is super expressive, and I love when Mario was trying to explain things to other characters by reenacting what he saw in a charade form. I love that. With the game lacks in story, it makes up with witty and funny writing, and adding tons of charm to the world and characters. Now in terms of the other characters, we have Mallow, who is this cloud-like being who is really proficient in magic. His arc is mostly about finding about his origin. We have Geno, and if you're part of the Smash Bros community, you know this character is one of the most requested. I get it, he's a cool character, but we don't see much of him in this game. Geno starts off a little weak for me, but as he levels up, he becomes a machine. Geno was sent from the Star Road to help Mario stop Smithy and his gang and return peace throughout Mushroom Kingdom. This game also features Peach and Bowser as party members. That's right, this game has Bowser, Peach, and Mario all working together to put a stop to Smithy. I absolutely love this dynamic, and I will say this now, Bowser in any Mario RPG is hilarious. This game is no exception. There is something about Bowser crying about his decline in dominance that just kept me laughing throughout the entire adventure. Bowser has always been the comic relief in the RPG titles, and that started with this game. It's absolutely great. Now in terms of gameplay, you explore different towns and areas throughout the world. Each town has the RPG standards, items and weapon shops to beef up your parties, inns that allow you to restore the health and flower points of each of your party members, and townspeople who have small dialogue about the current state of the world and their town. Each town has their own personality and small sub-stories, which I enjoy. The standout for me was definitely Nimbus, which was Mallow's home area. I also really enjoyed the Rosetown area. The only complaint I have, the final arc went on for far too long, and I felt exhausted trying to complete it. It felt the final part was just padding to make the game longer. It was exhausting. The battle system here is the traditional turn-based system, but with a twist. This game has a timed button mechanic that allows the player to have a higher damage output. If you attack an enemy and press the A button the moment that attack lands, you'll do extra damage. The same rules applies to defense. If an enemy attacks you and you press the A button right before their attack lands, it will lower the amount of damage that you take. Some weapons are easier to time than others, but overall, this mechanic works well. Each character has their specialties. Mario is a pretty well-rounded character. Peach is the healer. Her group hug move is a lifesaver. literally. Bowser is a powerhouse character, Mallow is the mage, and Geno is, well, Geno. Geno at first was pretty weak in my opinion, but once you level him up, he becomes a beast of a character. Mario, Geno, and Peach were my go-to team throughout this adventure. Characters has HP meter and an FP meter. FP is for flower points, which is this game's version of MP, or as I like to call it, flower power. You can also use items like mushrooms, syrups, and more to heal your party mid-battle. One thing I would give Mario RPG props for, I really enjoy the type of enemies you run into throughout the adventure. Some of them fall on the weird side of things, but for the most part, there's some really fun enemies here. I still don't understand Donkey Kong being chained up. That's just cruel. The bosses here can also be pretty fun to fight, yet some are extremely annoying. I mean, some of these bosses can attack like 4 times in a single turn. How is that even fair? The standout for me was definitely the Axle Rangers, which are a total parody of the Power Rangers. In that one-on-one fight with Jonathan, I thought that was super epic. Now, when you're not battling it out or talking to the townspeople, the game has these mini games and platforming sections. Some of these mini games are fun and others are questionable. Due to the way the game is styled, the platforming sections can be a little awkward. This game goes for that pre-rendered look like Donkey Kong Country, and for the most part, the game looks great, but when it comes to these later sections for platforming, it can get hard to see where you're jumping. The music in this game is decent. There was nothing here that really made me want to go back and listen to the soundtrack by itself, but I didn't hear any bad themes either, so that's a plus. I really enjoyed the battle and save room themes. The game has pretty good presentation overall, and for this to be Mario's first RPG, they succeeded in that. Overall, Mario RPG is the start of a long-running sub-series within the Mario franchise that offers many things for RPG and Mario fans alike. Do I think it's the best Mario RPG out there? No. But then again, this game is what started the idea of Mario even being in the genre to begin with. The story here is straightforward, the characters are great, the bosses are fun to battle against, and the overall sense of adventure is great to have in a game like this. Mario RPG is an easy recommendation for anyone who is a fan of the Super Nintendo era of RPGs, or if you're just looking to get into the genre. This is a great way to teach you how a game like this works in terms of the mechanics. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.